Hello and welcome to Simple Scotch Reviews. Right off the bat, I want to apologize for the video quality / angle again, but you're not here for video production. You're here for whiskey information. Hopefully I'll get back to the other old setup soon that I think had better quality. But with that out of the way, here we have not a Scotch review. It is a American single malt Balcones Texas single malt whiskey. I believe it's Balcones #1 Texas single malt whiskey. Pot still. It also is, 53% ABV, so higher proof whiskey. I read something about it being 2-year-old. I don't know if that's true or if it's minimum 2 years, and then there's some older stuff blended in. Don't know how long it's been around. Didn't look too far into it. Not super familiar with Balcones. I went into this whiskey with a certain level of hope, just because I'd seen out there lots of people. Well, it's always been heralded as the best single malt America's ever produced. They're, watch out, Scotland. America's making single malt. And I'm like, look, I love Scotch, so let's see really what this is all about. And I'll get to the review here in just 1 second, but I will say that this whiskey, I had a sample bottle. I poured it, initially nosed it, initially tasted it, and then let it sit for over an hour. When I returned to it, I don't know if I've ever had a whiskey change so much in that period of time for the positive. Kind of was going to make a review hating on this whiskey. Normally, if I don't just have a mini bottle, I'll have a whiskey multiple times, get to know it before I make a review. But with these airplane bottles, it's kind of first impressions only. So I was going to I'm like, oh, great. I don't have to make many reviews of whiskeys I dislike, because I like a lot of them. But I thought that's where we were headed. But turns out if I let it sit an hour and I'm patient, which for a full-sized bottle, that may just mean getting past the neck, letting it have some room to breathe, and over time it'll improve. So then you could have a whole bottle of the good stuff that would be good right away. You don't have to let it sit for an hour in your glass. But I don't know how that works since I don't have a full-size bottle. So let's get into the review quick. This is a simple Scotch review. We're not fast-forwarding through a ton of BS to get to it. The nose is dark. A lot darker than I expected. There's a level of mustiness. This is aged in new American oak, maybe charred. It does not use any kind of sherry maturation or anything like that. It's dark, it's musty, it's a lot of oak. I get a lot of oak on the nose. I'd say it's a bourbon-y quality, but it might just be an American whiskey, American oak, new American oak quality. So it's not from the corn. So yeah, it's just the barrel with that oak. There's a hint of there's a faint vanilla, a little bit of baking spice, maybe a little bit of cinnamon going on. Palate's hot. It's 53%. So it's not a thin whiskey by any means, or thin or watery or anything people use to describe low ABV whiskeys that don't like them. It's got the oak for sure. It is a lot of oak presence, which is different than, there are single malts Scotch with oak presence, but it's much more pronounced, and I'm sure that someone more knowledgeable in the production would say that it's due to the climate and the aging process that it undergoes in America versus the more moderate climate in Scotland. Guessing. I'm no scientist. Palate isn't a tremendous shock from the nose. There's a dusty, leathery note, maybe some tobacco. But aside from that, the main notes, oak. There's a little bit, there is a fruit note present, maybe cherry, but there's a fruit note present for sure. Light cherry, light as in faint. Cherry note, oak, musty, maybe leather, maybe tobacco. Baking spice from the nose, not so present in the palate, not getting a whole lot of that. Very long lingering finish that fades to just the oak flavor. I'm not, nothing new shows up in the finish, just the lingering woody oak. Just take one more taste here. Actually, just realized this is a 53% ABV whiskey, and I haven't even tried adding water. It's not a good impression of a whiskey without adding water. Especially if it's 53% ABV. Usually, if you're watching my other videos and you say, you didn't add water to this one, I generally have had multiple glasses of the whiskey where I experiment with another drop. I don't do that all in the video because no one needs that. But I usually note how water improves it versus doesn't improve it. Whew. A little much on the water. Of course, because I don't have my normal setup, my little Scotch water jug. Glencairn Iona, I think, is the official model. If this is a little watery, rest assured there's still a little left. We can top her off. On the nose, less dark. Still got that musty note, but less just oak darkness. Oak backs off a little. Wow. That wasn't for the positive. Like that oak flavor or oak nose note I got, it wasn't so much there. And then I got hit with a big whiff of pine. And by pine, I don't mean, pine air freshener good. I mean wood pine, like take a 2x4 from the lumber yard and smell it. Pine wood. Funky. You know what? The more water, adding some water did make it a bourbony note. I said, bourbony, no, it's just that American oak. I don't know. Made it more similar to a bourbon on the nose. Honestly, it didn't take the alcohol heat. I put quite a bit of water in there. It didn't take as much of the alcohol heat off the nose as I expected. More baking spice, definitely on the nose with water. I think the vanilla turned down a notch, but the baking spice turned up a notch. Whoa, entirely new world. Yeah, whiskey is completely different. And it's not water, so it held up to a lot of water. It's the fruit note comes out more. You take the just musty, dark, woody oak, turn it way down, and you start to see some other stuff come through. Yes, I definitely recommend tasting neat to see how you like it, but if you're not super keen on it, or you just want to experiment, especially if you've got a whole bottle, pour some water in. It does make a big difference. I'd say it more positively affects the palate than the nose. I think it makes the nose worse. That pine note that I get now, and you might not get it. I get it. I don't like it. Makes the nose much worse. Definitely thins it out with water. All right, here we go with the baking spice. Turn down the oaky, woody flavors so you can get the more that fruity note, that cherry note. I'm trying to see if I still get a leathery note or a tobacco note. I think they're still there, just push further down. It's like they took the leather and tobacco note plus the dominant oak wood note and they got shoved down by the water and the fruity notes rose to the top. Fruit and baking spice also rose to the top or just stayed at the top. Whatever. They show up more now with the other stuff kicked down a notch. Finish is shorter now with water added. Makes sense too because it's less mouthfeel, less viscous. Overall, this whiskey, let's actually add some more whiskey back to it just because I got it. I'll take one sip here in a second after I talk. So overall, this whiskey, after initial thoughts of it being horrible, I let it breathe. It's good. Not, wow, this is great. I didn't know America could make single malt like this. No, the hype, overdone. I think this whiskey is good. The main problem that I have with it is the price. It's super young. Yeah, it's 53%. Honestly, it's a very similar price to what I purchased Glendronach cast strength for, which you can watch that review to get my thoughts of it. Not saying it's an amazing whiskey, but it's Scotch, sherry matured, and it's higher proof than 53, I think. So it's cast strength Scotch, more aged than this, so I'd expect a higher price. And they want as much as that for this single malt. If it sells well and it's getting all the accolades, which I'm sure is why it's priced the way it is because of the accolades and people wanting to try it, I'm going to be a pass. I don't mind it. If this were priced like I don't know. I don't want to use numbers because every time I do, there's going to be that guy that says, oh, that's a steal, buy them all. Or that guy that's like, you should never buy another bottle of whiskey. The whiskey there's way too... Whatever. Don't need that nonsense. But that being said, if I do throw out a number, like $70 for a bottle, $70, and they didn't age it that much, and I know I've paid money for NAS Scotch. I like Scotch. But the expensive NAS Scotches I've had, aside from that Glendronach cast strength, which was still fine, it was just not my favorite. Expensive NAS Scotch is still good. It's not like, oh, it's terrible. Every NAS Scotch, I don't want to say every good NAS Scotch I've had blows this out of the water, and I'd take it any day over this. But that being said, this isn't bad. If you slash the price in half, if we were talking $35, then I might consider having a bottle rather than just this airplane bottle, getting a bottle to just enjoy from time to time when I'm in the mood. I'm in a mood for different whiskey all the time. So then it might be worth getting. At $70 a bottle, I'm a pass. Just thinking of all the great Scotch, and not even just a Scotch versus American. You just like Scotch. I've had bourbons that are $70. Like them better. Higher priced bourbon and rye I've had that's better than this. Unfortunately, some of those favorites of bourbon and rye are impossible for me to find now. But that point aside, I'll tell you the same thing I told you with Johnny Walker Blue. Good flavor. Johnny Walker Blue, amazing flavor. So don't read too far into it. Good whiskey overpriced. That's the main message from this. That's the message from Johnny Walker Blue. I don't want this for $70. And you can make an argument for why it's with the process, whatever, why they're going to charge $70, or it's award winning so we can charge $70. I don't want it at $70. If you do, good for you. But for me, this whiskey's good. And it can hold its own in a lower price bracket. But if we're talking $70, yeah, this one is a... So, I don't know the prices everywhere. If you're looking at this bottle on the shelf for sub $50, definitely buy it. You might be pleasantly surprised and like it. $70, I say pass. You may still get it because you're intrigued, because you like Scotch, and you're like, well, I want to support American whiskey and, and see if it'll be my favorite. Because I thought there was a chance with what I had heard about it that this was going to be my absolute favorite American whiskey because it's single malt. I've had one other single malt that was terrible from American whiskey. But I had flashbacks to that one from this one, but this one's better. For sure. Sorry, this is a long-winded review. And I don't want to bash on them too much. They can charge $300 a bottle if they want. I won't get it, but if it's winning awards and it's impossible to find and they can jack up, it's not impossible to find. We're not to that stage yet. I'm sure come some Whiskey of the Year award, this thing will be impossible to buy. But it's had accolades, so maybe we won't get there with this one. But either way, for whatever reason it's priced the way that it is, I feel it is not priced in a price point that it can be competitive in. My personal opinion. But don't want too much price talk to detract from the fact that it's a good whiskey. If you're a big Scotch drinker and you want to just try something different, it's different. I could see a lot of Scotch drinkers preferring this to a lot of American whiskey. Personally, I have some bourbons and ryes that I really do enjoy that beat this one out, but I could see some Scotch drinkers that just don't like bourbon or rye. This one could be an American whiskey they could get behind. But ending this long-winded review, check out the channel, like, subscribe. Hopefully I can get back to my old setup soon with my proper water dispensing device. But also, I don't have ridiculously long arms or whatever this angle's doing. But as I know, if you're watching this channel caring about that, you shouldn't be. You should be watching it, but you shouldn't be caring about the video production and quality. It's not going to make me prettier if it looks nicer. Higher resolution is probably not going to make things that much better. But ending this long-winded review, I need to start setting more of a timer here on these reviews. But either way, like, subscribe, check out all the reviews, all the different types of whiskey reviewed. First American single malt whiskey review, but tons of Scotch, Canadian, Irish, American. There's all sorts of stuff going on. More coming. The very reason I have this video set up different right now is so I could make sure to get more videos churned out. We're going to be churning more out since when I was moving, I wasn't able to do it so much. But now that we're here, got this set up, and enjoy your whiskey. Check out the channel, lots of reviews. Subscribe to get notified, and enjoy. I feel like if I had a whole bottle of this stuff, by the end of the bottle, it's gonna be awesome. With just how much it improved by the end of this small sample. Enjoy your whiskey and cheers.